Two things I want to go over with you this week very quickly here. One has to do with the complicity of persuasion, and the other one has to do with the ethics of persuasion, and I'm hoping at least the latter part's not anything new to you that way, and you'll see what I mean here in just a minute as I get into that. If you've taken lying and deception from me, you know the philosophy behind the whole concept of deception, that it takes two to go through and make the lie complete. And that means that obviously you have the perpetuator of the deception, and then you have the believer. And it's the believer who goes through and completes that circuit of the lie. Well, the same thing is true in persuasion. The only way persuasion works is if we go through and somehow agree to it. Something resonated within us, some kind of value, some type of ideology, something went through and said, bing, yes, I get it. Or maybe it was just a default. Maybe just our own default thinking got us to that point. But that closes that persuasive loop, much like the deceptive loop. The trick here, and what you're learning throughout the semester, is to be more cautious as far as how you close that loop, that you're becoming more critical and more analytical of the influences that are getting your brain and your heart to go through and make the decisions, maybe even without your careful consideration. Well, hopefully you're more careful in that consideration now. Which leads me to this concept of ethics. And I'm hoping this won't be a surprise to you or unknown to you as far as pathos, logos, and ethos. The classical thinking here is that persuasion exists within the realm of ethics as far as how we make people feel, how we make people think, and our own credibility within those two endeavors. So let me pan that out a little bit. Pathos, probably the easiest one if you want to associate that with pathological. It's emotion. It's crazy sometimes. Maybe that helps us make that kind of sense. But we have a tendency to, if we are agreeing emotionally, then we're on board. Now, we've seen incredible infractions of that. Many of you, as you pointed out within your political speeches and applying certain types of taxonomy to that you're seeing how they're capitalizing on emotions like fear to go through and become persuasive. This was in your speeches. I'm trying to remember the theaters that we covered. This is what I get for doing this on the fly. Anyway, you get the idea. Lots of people go through and capitalize on our own emotions. If we happen to fear the idea that somebody might break into our house and that somebody might be of a different color than we are, then certainly we might be cajoled or persuaded to go through and think that perhaps we need some type of a formal barrier between us and those other skinned people. Now, it's ridiculous with some level of consideration, right? Some approach to critical thinking, but more often than not, pathos works without that. Pathos works without that to get us to agree about things as well that we might have a common value with, like we might all value family. We might value health, those kinds of things. And so automatically we're kind of resonating with those messages, even though we might not have given them a whole lot of thought. Enter multi-level marketing, for example. Everybody wants to go through and feel better. We just don't want to do that with the kind of prices that are, that are asked to go through and do that with certain items that are out there. But that might be overridden, that critical idea might be overridden by the emotional one. Pathos, let's see, let's go to logos, I guess, would be the next logical way to go here, and that's obviously the thinky part of how we're being persuaded. Now, here's where we become critical, and this is all I'm asking of you to do this semester, is to maybe amplify what's happening with that logos side of your brain. But if pathos is already working hard there, logos might be overrun. It's been a tough week for me. Here's to give me a break, would you? We like logic to work. We especially like it to work if it's already in our favor. So if somebody is already capitalizing on how we think, then there might be an ethical infraction going on there. Which brings me to ethos, which sounds like ethics. Actually, it's credibility. And there are many people who capitalize on their credibility to go through and persuade us to do things that normally we wouldn't be doing. And I'll leave the political arena outside of this. I just watched documentary about my friend Jan Broberg, abducted in plain sight. Man, talk about a disruption and abuse of ethos involved in that story as far as the individual is concerned. Or another popular artifact that's out these days is about Ted Bundy and his recordings and whatever. I'm not going to waste my time to go through and watch that, but those are pretty good indicators of what I'm talking about as far as the ethical infraction of ethos, credibility, our own charisma, our own competencies, how we come across to a particular audience to get them to go through and do something. All right. So armed with that, again, I'm hoping this isn't anything new to you, but I'm going to ask you to apply these ideas this week to an artifact that I'm going to post up kind of as just a bit of a test to see how things are sticking to you, okay? So if you have any questions about this, you know where to find me. Thanks for watching.